Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the LionHeart Radio Sides Show with George Briones and myself, Rick Alexander. For those of you that listen to LionHeart Radio and you're wondering what the hell is going on because we haven't played any of those lately, just know in a couple weeks we're going to be back to our normal schedule LionHeart Radio show, and we'll also have the LionHeart Radio Side Show. But this time of the Side Show has actually been really great for me because I've been able to record a bunch of content for LionHeart Radio, work on some side projects in my new book, and then also continue the show and get on here with George and talk about life. And so far we've had a really good reaction and people seem to be digging the show. But today we talk about managing the highs and lows in life, and the show kicks off with George recapping his 50K race that he did this previous weekend. And I'm not a great recorder, clearly. I'm not good at the technical side of podcasting, so I didn't start the recording until, I don't know, maybe a couple minutes into his explanation. But we definitely got everything that was pertinent to the conversation. And, you know, when you're running an ultra, one of the things that happens is you have to manage the highs and lows. It's one of the things I love about ultra running. And the other thing I love about ultra running is how it transcends to regular life. It's like you learn these lessons and they're so applicable in everything else that you do in life. And so today we really talk about a lot of the lessons George learned in his run, and then we talk about how those apply to life. And so we'll start out talking about the run for a while, and then we'll really get into some deeper topics as the show goes on. All right, so without further ado, the LionHeart Radio Side Show.
Just finished running San Diego 100, and the dude's 6'2" and can just power hike like a monster. And then my buddy Dave also is pretty experienced out there, so he was moving really well. And there's me in the back by like 20 feet, 30 feet, maybe a little bit further, and just watch them. It's like, you guys are assholes. Like, why are you moving so fast? But realistically, we were holding a pace that I usually would climb a mountain like that with that kind of grade over 7 miles. I would hold a 18, 19 minute mile pace, and we were holding 16, 17s, and my heart rate wasn't through the roof like I thought it was going to be. It was more of like just mental, like, all right, trust your fitness and move with the purpose and see what these guys are doing. And I ended up being able to pretty much handle it all the way through. And then the last 6 miles that I turned it on, man, I dropped it. I ended up passing probably about 12 people, and it felt good, man. I stayed up on my nutrition. I was, it was funny, man, because I've actually kind of changed on how I've been eating lately, a little bit more of a higher fat diet and higher protein diet lately, actually. And it's actually been working out really well for me. I'm still putting in carbs, and I haven't cut that food group out. Like, I'm not going to do that. I fucking love carbs way too much. But I've cut back on the amount of, or the type of carbohydrates that I'm taking. So for instance, like, if anybody's been following me for a while, they saw I was going to try and go vegan like 4 months ago or 5 months ago. Like 4 months ago, I was going to do like a month long vegan like test or whatever else. And I decided, I don't want to cut anything out of my diet. But what I learned was the differences in alkaline foods and high acidic type foods. And ever since I've kind of broaden my horizon on that, I've been able to kind of narrow myself where I want to eat and how my nutrition has been lately. And dude, I literally, like, I cut out all white rice. I don't eat no white rice no more. I eat nothing but brown rice. And then fruit wise, I used to eat fruit like crazy, dude. I mean, I used to put down 2 or 3 apples a day. The cutie oranges, I used to eat like 6, 7 of those a day, dude. And it was like, it was cool, but I could see myself kind of bonking when I was hitting longer runs. And just hearing other guys that are a little bit elite athletes, especially the ones that are doing a lot of vert, for instance, like Avery Collins. Avery's doing a lot of higher fat stuff. He's doing things. Listen to, who else? A lot of guys are, I know, like I said, that's one of the guys, but a lot of guys are doing this, eat a little bit higher fats throughout the week or whatever else, because when it comes time to run, you can still put those higher fats in. But then when you do put in the higher sugar carbohydrates, your body is like, oh, I know I need to do this and utilize it. So, for instance, I'm just keeping my glycemic index on the lower end to keep more of an acidic diet. And that was what this race was about, was, all right, cool, trust your fitness, push the pace where you can, stick to what you wanted to do. And like me and Sabrina had a good little talk through what we wanted, and I was able to maintain and hit all those numbers, dude. And nutrition was huge for me. I was putting down probably about 200 calories an hour.
Damn.
which is good. But what helped me out was whenever I got to the aid stations, I would ask for their jar of peanut butter. And I would get like a knife, and I would just take like 2 big knifeluls of peanut butter, dude, just from like the start of the knife to the end of it, and just eat it. And then they had these, I don't know, someone forgot what they named them. I don't know, maybe you might know the name of it, but it was like peanut butter jelly sandwich with bacon inside of it.
Ooh,
I don't know what the name of. Yeah, dude.
Sounds good,
but
though.
it was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
I'd at the 21K mark, dude, like 13 and a half miles in, like I saw that the aid station pounded that. We had a 5 mile loop, pounded another one straight into the climb, and that was a big saver for me. But like I said, I was putting a bunch of peanut butter in, a lot more salt stuff. So I'd grab watermelon. They had salt out, so I'd hit the watermelon, salt, mouth, or go potatoes, salt, and mouth.
Yep.
They had like potato chips out, so I'd eat a little bit of that. But mainly, dude, it was sticking to just a higher fat diet. And then running, I'm using this company called Crank Nutrition, and they're called E-Gels, and they have 150 calories in it, actually. And it has a shit ton of electrolytes, sodium, and potassium, and it hasn't messed my stomach at all. So like when I'm on track and not at the aid station, putting this down, and then using the Endure from Softlead. I have one of those on me plus water, and what I started doing was I'm switching off and on of Endure and both waters, just because I don't want to get so used to the Endure and then not want it down the road. So pretty much, I'll go water, and then next time I come to an aid station, if I have the Endure on me or when my crew's going to be at for the 100-mile race. But what I was practicing was, all right, cool, let's go. They were using Tailwind, so I had to use Tailwind, but I was doing that just because I didn't get to carry a bunch of Endure on me. But I was going back and forth and still using Endure when I could, and then going and using Tailwind when I could, and then putting in salt tablets, dude, every like hour and a half was key for me. And that was just another thing. Like I said, someone goes, "You're a lion amongst men." And I was like, I'm just a cub learning from all the lions out there who have ran from like experienced runners like yourself. And, luckily being under like, Sabrina and Avery as an athlete and being able to learn from them. And, she gave me a really good idea. She's like, check your legs when you're moving. If they feel jiggly and they're good, you're fine. Once they start hardening up, you need to start putting salt in. And she was like, I just slapped the side of my legs. And that's what I started doing. I started slapping the side of my legs. And if they feel fine, they feel fine. But overall, dude, like it's looking good, man. Like I said, now I'm resting for the next 3 days because Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I'm putting in about 75 miles back to back, like across the board, dude. So yeah, dude, Wednesday's like a 17 or a 2.5 to 2 hour day. So it's about 10 miles, and I'll get on a easy course out here just to move. And then I have a 15 to 17 mile day the next day with 4K invert. Next day, I got 20 miles with split up in two sessions, a 12 and an 8 mile session. That's Friday, and then Saturday I have a 12 to 15 with 3K invert, and then Sunday will be 7 miles at an easy pace, just kind of time on the feet. And none of this is now realistically, dude, like, and you know how it is, man. It's not really more about like how fast I can push the paces. It's just about how much more fitter I can get, and trusting and playing around with like game day nutrition and finding what's working for me, and just kind of pushing and really just trusting my body on that realm.
Right, definitely.
That's where I'm at right now, dude. I got 3 more weeks of a big push and then taper for 2 weeks.
That's cool. It sounds like everything in your race plan basically went according to plan, and that's actually pretty hard to line up too. Usually something goes catastrophically wrong.
Well, and that's the funny thing that kind of scares me, man, is because like I haven't had a bad race, dude, leading up to this 100-mile race at all. I mean, I've had some bad training weeks and bad training days, and but I haven't really. Every time I go to game day, it's like I really haven't seen, like, I kind of adapt on the go with whatever's happening, and I'm very flexible with when it comes into the aid station and being in tune to like what I want to eat and what I want. Like that was my first time doing the whole peanut butter thing. Going into doing the race, because I was focusing on a little bit eating higher fats throughout the week. So it was kind of one of those things. Well, okay, cool. I'm going to go ahead and put that on the list also of like things that have worked for me. So when the unexpected does happen at Kodiak, I have all these tools that I can kind of go to see what will work and help me out. And I think that's and I have a buddy, my buddy Chase Ford. He's an ultra marathon runner, so he's getting ready for his 100-mile, and we just talked today on Instagram. He had said he's felt like unprepared, and I think we're all unprepared for stuff like this, right?
Yeah.
We can just create experiences that are going to help develop ways to get out of these unexpected situations, which now make us well prepared for at the end of the day. For instance, we can use someone like, out financial problems, right? Like if all of a sudden you got your credit card stolen and someone just pulled out $1,000 out of your banking account. Well, luckily you have a savings account that has a good enough money in there so that you're able to kind of go back there until this gets taken care of, compared to someone who has no savings account and lost their credit card and now they're in a bind, right? Like that's the reason why we do these kinds of things, to set us up for success and set us up for unexpected situations that end up turning into an expected situation that, oh, well, good thing I did that because I planned for this or I planned for that. So, instead of having A, B, C, or D, having A through Z being a way of doing it. And I think that's a lot of what I'm doing right now, man, is really just trying to learn as much as possible of like what I'm doing out there and everything else like that, man. So
I think the fact that your races have gone so well is a testament to your training, because now every once in a while you get in a race and like shit goes sideways and there's not a lot you can do about it. Like sometimes your stomach gets upset, just the day, the moon, who fucking knows. But at the same time, like if I look back on races where things have gone really wrong, a lot of times it was because I was not prepared enough going into it.
Yeah, and that's a huge part about it, dude. I just got done listening to a podcast with the author of the book called Endure. Have you heard the book called Endure?
Yeah, I had him on LionHeart Radio.
Okay, I didn't get to listen to that. I'm sorry, but I listened to another podcast he did with another group, and he talked deep about this whole idea of like not going in with expectations. And he's probably talked about that in your show with that, is like, he was like, it's a lot of just kind of a primal instinct of like knowing what you're going to be doing going out there, instead of looking at a pace on your watch or having a specific guidelines of kind of going off of what you want, because a lot of things don't always go in your way, and he says, what is it saying? He goes, it's better to take more risk in a race day than it is to be conservative. Mm-hmm. Is kind of the idea that he talks about, right? Like, that's the reason why a lot of good athletes are there, because they're okay with taking that risk. And the kind of the same idea that I've taken with this now is like being able to be okay with taking the risk with playing around with my nutrition and changing out my shoes and seeing what's working for me, right? Playing around with different vests and going out and taking that risk. And, I haven't really pushed the pace yet on a race before, just because I'm so new to it. And I think after this 100-miler, it'll be like, all right, cool, let's go ahead and start playing with pushing the efforts a little bit more as I become a little bit more experienced and seasoned. I mean, for only going on, I'll be doing my first 100-mile race not even within a year of doing ultra marathons, but I've done already going on 7 races so far leading up to this. So yeah. I got some experience underneath me so far, but it's that whole 100-mile race is going to be completely different, especially only running 2 50-milers and everything else has been 50Ks. It's just going to be something that, with every mile there comes a new experience and another unexperienced, unknown idea. So just being able to mentally handle what comes our way. And I guess being in the special operations realm, it's kind of helped us out with that understanding of adapt to adverse conditions, adapt and overcome. Yeah. And it's being flexible. I think that key word is huge. A lot of people are not flexible with it at all.
I think that's like one of the beauties of competing, is that like on any given day, like shit can go wrong, yeah, but at the same time, like every once in a while you lay it all out on the line, nothing goes wrong, and you have a day. You know what I mean?
Just have that, yeah.
Yeah,
you just have that day.
Go for it.
Oh, you're good, man. Go for it. Sorry about that.
Thinking about back, the best race I'd ever had, it was like a 12-hour. It was actually right when I switched to a high-fat diet as well. And it was kind of a PR at the time. It was like, I think I got 97K in 12 hours. But I came out there with a plan. My plan was to only do 50 miles in 12 hours. But I unexplainably felt great. And I literally, like, I rode that bitch for 12 hours. I rode that high. And, like, every once in a while, like, things just come together. And it kind of sucks because now I chase that dragon, right? Like, there's no way I'm going to have a race that goes that well ever again, maybe. But, like, yeah. Goddamn, I'm going to keep trying because it was such an amazing feeling.
Well, it kind of goes back to this whole idea, too, dude, is like, well, like you mentioned to me also was the whole thing was also has to do a lot with how you're preparing for your training. And like, yes, but at the same time, though, it's like, what was the mindset going into that race? Like you said that you wanted to shoot for 50 miles in 12 hours, but you're like, okay, cool, just open up and see what happens. And you continue riding the wave. And I think a lot of people throttle back from riding that wave and end up putting themselves into a low automatically without even meaning to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's something that I really do believe too. It's like, I actually had a conversation today at the coffee shop, and the Batista, she was like, hey, I'm currently going through an emotional journey right now, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, that's really cool that you're doing that. You're actually starting to become more aware. You're starting to create more empathy. Your emotional intelligence is growing. And this is the reason why we're having this current conversation right now, is because of the fact that you are open and you see that wavelength of being able to grow and being able to be in tune with yourself, And she's like, yeah, there's some days where I'll have like 2 or 3 really good high days. And then all of a sudden I'll have like 1 or 2 days of low days. And I was like, last year I went through a huge emotional journey just with like selling the business, kind of transitioning out of that realm of being an owner and coaching and having all these athletes that I helped grow, and to realize like the value that I was providing for them wasn't the same value I was getting back in return. It was more of just, let me just eat out of the hand that feeds you, instead of being smart and in managing those kinds of things. And going through this emotional journey at that time period, I ended up realizing that it was all about learning how to manage those highs, right? And I didn't realize and learn that until I started running ultra marathons.
Yeah.
Was because it's one thing you said too, man. It's like, you get that high, manage it as well as you can, so that you don't have these huge spikes and highs and lows throughout a 50-mile race, a 50K, or even a 100-miler, because realistically, 30K is a long day. Or I mean, a 50K is a long day. If you have over, like for instance, I got the 50K I just did, it had 6,500 feet in elevation gain in it. Like, that's some time out there on the trails. I was out there for, about right around 7 hours and 45 minutes. But the thing is, though, is like, that's a long day, right? From the start in the morning to whatever else. And you have to manage a lot of what comes through it, right? And if you can understand how to manage that high with life, you don't get so many. Again, we talk about this graph, right? We talk about this linear progression where we might get a spike and then all of a sudden we have a big drop. Well, we don't want that either. We want to see you manage your high, not just in a race or training, but manage it in life, I think is kind of where I kind of got that idea from. And she was like, wow, that's fucking really cool. Never thought about being able to manage my highs from everything going around me. I was like, compartmentalize like what's going on. Like, for instance, like me and you are having this conversation right now, and I'm the happiest place in the world. This is a really good high that I'm on because we're able to educate and help people and inspire people, and, maybe learn, and also not even maybe, but also learn from others when they hear from us. And it's like, all right, cool, I need to manage that high because we want to go ahead and continue it going across the board. And it's one of those things where it's like, all right, cool, after this now I got to go hang out with my kiddo, whatever else, and be able to manage and compartmentalize everything at once, and spread load the effort that you're putting out forth that day, instead of kind of wasting it all on one thing and then you have nothing on the back end.
Yeah, and I think that's easier said than done, because when you get passionate about something in life, it's easy to get like lost in the manicness of it all, right? Like you get really excited, you get really passionate. It's hard sometimes to stop and slow down and look around and make sure, you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's and doing things right in order to manage that high, to make sure that it lasts for as long as possible. Sometimes we just run straight on into that high, and then we end up, kind of feeling disconnected.
And that's where it comes down to, like, we put emotional intelligence on a scale of 1 to 10. Like, where's your emotional intelligence on that, right? Like, the old me back in the day when I had no idea of emotional intelligence at all, something like that, it would be a high for a day, and that is it. But now with, I put myself on a scale for emotional intelligence now, a 7 out of a 10, I think is decent. Right. I'm able to like understand and manage it. I'm not gonna lie, I still have my low days. We're human, we're not perfect. So I think it comes down to really understanding and being like, all right, cool. Where's the fill line right now in my cup? And, is it almost full? Is it empty, or whatever else?
And I think the way you manage the lows is just like in an ultra. You just put one foot in front of the other. Like, sometimes it doesn't have to be the greatest day ever. You recognize you're in a low. Things aren't exactly where you want. And you kind of got to ride it out. And that sucks, but it's kind of life. One of the ways that I program is for all of my athletes, on any given day, I either put a red R next to the work or I put a blue A. So the red R is like required work. The blue A just denotes accessory work. But the reason that I break it out for them is because I know that people get days where they don't have a lot of time, or they're feeling unmotivated or whatever. And so I tell them on those days, now if you do all of the work, you're going to have the biggest bang for your buck. But on those days where you're feeling like shit, or you don't have time, you're pressed for time, whatever, just do the required work. That way you're still hitting that underlying linear progression, and you still are building momentum even when you're in a low. and then we'll get to the rest at another time. It's not the end of the world. And I look at everything that way. Like with my business, with everything, it's like, what do I need to do? It's kind of like Ryan says, move the chains. It's like, I feel like shit today. I'm in a low. Let me just do this one thing that I know I need to do, like answer these 5 emails or set up this appointment, and then other than that, I'm fucking going to the beach and reading a book or whatever.
Well, and that comes. I guess you can use a quote too of like, work the current space that you're in. Don't worry about any other space that's not around you, right? Or like whatever stage you're in, and it's like be present and work that. Because if you can work through that and be there, it's going to go ahead and help you go ahead and get out of that low like you talk about. And like I experienced a low in my race too this past one, you know, like mile 14 to 17 was a low for me, you know, and luckily I had guys around me who were like, all right, we got to run. All right, cool, we can walk. All right, cool, we can run. All right, cool, we got to walk. Now we can run. And it was one of those things where if it was me by myself, I probably wouldn't have done that. Probably would have just power hiked my low just because of the fact that I'm okay. I was doing the bare minimum to get out of that low instead of trusting my fitness like I did. Whenever we had a run, I would run. Whenever I would walk, and by the time I knew it, like this low, like this high was here and this low was here. And as I continued like managing it, I was right back into a normal high, and I was able to push out the last mile and a half to the aid station, refuel, get my mind right, and then get back on the mountain for this next huge, 3K climb from, for over 7 miles. And it kind of, like you said, goes back to the whole thing in life, right? Like I need to do exactly what I need to do to get through the day so that I know that I, took care of either work, I took care of personal matters, I took care of financial matters, I took care of whatever I need to do. But once that is done, now I can focus on me. No matter how much time that is left, I can focus on me, know tomorrow's going to be a new day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. And then, it depends on the nature of the low, because in essence, like when we talk about life, when you talk about like getting knocked down, like sometimes, we've talked about this on the show a bunch, like some things just happen that are out of your control that put you in a low. And like, I'm a firm believer that, we, on social media, we have a lot of memes that are like, just do it, just get it done. And it's like, dude, sometimes you get the wind knocked out of you. You're not going to die, but it fucking feels like you are. So just hang out for a minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Catch your breath. Like, it's okay. Figure it out and then move on. And like, I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of need to be like, oh, don't dwell. Like, just move on. And it's like, dude, sometimes it just sucks and you got to just ride it out.
Well, and being able to, like, that's another big thing too. Being able to dwell on something and experience it at full spectrum, dude, actually heals you faster than not dwelling on it.
Right.
Right?
Because
like
there's a chance that it's trying to teach you something.
No, exactly, right? And that's one thing that, and it's funny, man, is I don't mean to get personal, but for instance, like I was supposed to fly home this coming weekend to come visit my parents and my sister and everyone else. And I'm not going to lie, like the relationship between my sister and me are not the greatest. Relationship between my mom have always been strong, whatever else. But as I've gotten older and she's now taking care of my sister's daughter, which is her daughter, like, everything else, things have changed a little bit, right? And like I live on the West Coast and she lives in Texas. For me to fly home and, everything else, it's going to cost a pretty penny. But at the same time, though, when I went to like go ahead and communicate and talk about it, there was a sense of, let me just close myself off and not worry about it because I don't want to be confrontational or I don't want to dwell on something that is whatever. And I'm pretty sure people experience this in life, experience with their family, right? It doesn't change that I don't love them or I love them 100%. And, sometimes I just don't agree with what they say, right? So it comes down to being able to like sit there in that time and moment and work through what you're doing and don't close off, because if you can work through what you're doing, it's going to go ahead and make the whole situation a night and day difference.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it just goes to show like life's not black and white. Like there are many different ways to handle many different situations. And I just don't like, it's easy to get forced into thinking that there's like a way based on somebody's advice, somebody's guidance, some elite athlete, the way that they say on social media, like, whatever it is, however they deal with it. Like people, they'll put out advice, whatever, but it's important to remember, I think, that going through anything in life, like there are so many different ways to deal with it. Like for me lately, I've just realized like, dude, it's okay to stop and look around. Like whatever's coming next is going to be so much better than you can imagine. So right now when you're in a low, just fucking look around and try to learn what you can from it. Cause that's a real thing. It's trying to teach you something.
Well, and that's the thing though, right? And when we look at the highs, things are going by so fast, dude. And we forget to look around and see it because these highs are so good and they're giving us and they're feeding us endorphins, dopamine, and serotonin, and we're getting all this stuff being put into us. Then all of a sudden we get into a low endorphins are low, dopamine's low, serotonin's not there like it used to be, but everything has now become like the Matrix. And if you just slow down, open your eyes, and look to the left and right of you and behind you and in front of you in just a 360-degree like view of what's going on, you can then and again, like I said, it's not fucking easy. And I tell you what, I still struggle with this at times, right? Sure. Is being able to be like, wow, all right, cool. What's in front of me is amazing, and I'm happy about that. Oh, what's to the left of me is amazing. What's to the right of me is amazing. What's behind me, but I'm still just like, why? Why am I in this low for? Like, all this is going on, and you're just like, fuck, man, like, what is it? And then all of a sudden, when you go ahead and add all those things together, and this is where you have to be aware of that, right? Because we look left, right, forward, and back, and then all of a sudden, when I connect the dots and put it together, it's when I start to be able to get out of this low and continue moving up it. Yeah. And but again, it's not simple and it's not easy, right? And everyone has to find their own way to do that. But if we can understand to be like, hey, look, being in a high means you're going fast and you're hauling ass, and you might not be able to see every single thing because things are going well, but now you're in a low, everything's slowed down for you. Take that time to breathe. Well, just breathe.
Right, and you can't force perspective. Like you were saying, connecting the dots. Like, you can't always force that. So sometimes you're in a situation and you're like, dude, what the fuck? Like, why is this happening? And you cannot see the bigger picture. And it literally, like, you can't push the pace that the universe moves at. So sometimes it just takes a bit of time. We've talked openly on this show about our own hard times in the past year or whatever. And like, I just hit a period of about 3 weeks where I looked at all kinds of dots that all of a sudden were like, dude, fuck yes, that's why that happened. And it sucks because you can't force that awakening, right? Like, you just kind of got to ride it out, keep doing what you know is right, keep working toward the things that you want as best as you can with the tools that you have, with whatever you're given at the time. And then, dude, hopefully you look around and you realize, like, all right, the universe kind of has my back. Like, things are okay right now.
Well, and that's the funny thing, though, is if you stop and look at the universe, and if you're in that low and you stop and look at the universe, and if you were to stop and reach out to someone else, I guarantee you the universe is doing probably the same exact thing that you feel to that person, because, again, the universe is one, and we're all living in that, right? So, like, there has to be some kind of energy put off, and maybe people are like, what the fuck's this guy talking about, like, energy and stuff? But it's true, though, right? Like, if I'm in a low, I guarantee if I was to reach out to somebody and be like, hey, how's your day? I guarantee they're going to come back with something that, oh, it's going well, but this is going on, right? Everyone experiences that every single day. And if you were to reach out and ask someone like, hey, how are you doing? That's simple, right? And that's what happened at the coffee shop today. Was like the Batista, she was like, hey, how are you doing? I had earphones in, listen to podcasts, and I saw her talking, and all of a sudden she started opening up, and then we just able to create this dialogue of growth for each other, in that realm of understanding, like, oh, wow, like, all you got to do is stop, slow down, ask a question, and see where it goes from there. And again, like you say, we talked about it all the time, is social media takes that away from you.
It does. I mean, like, being present is very difficult with that, like, intensely smart device in your pocket or hand.
Yeah. It's so crazy, dude. And that's kind of like, where it all, and it's funny, man, people are like, man, these guys always talk about like being here, being there, but it's like one of those things where it's just like, every single time we do a new recording or a new show for us, there's something that we've learned in this time and place, or we've experienced something due to the fact that we're okay with risking ourselves and putting ourselves in that low that, Alex talks about from that book of Endure, right? Like, it's okay to put yourself out there and risk. Yes, you might either see a low or you might end up seeing a high the whole way through, but you'll never know unless you put yourself in that position. And I think that's a lot of people's problem nowadays in our world is like they're afraid to put themselves in that risk because it is so easy just to be comfortable and content with where they're at in that time and space.
Yeah, I completely agree. Going through this past week, I had another week of not being able to use my phone because I was like way out in the sticks. And same thing, like it happened again, man. I went through this point of mental clarity where I started realizing, like, it was like the first 24 hours, there was like this sort of visceral anxiety, wanted my phone back, and then I hit this point after about 30 hours of not having my phone anymore, and I was at a point where I was like actually like mentoring this inner city group. So I hit a point though after about 30 hours where I was just so present and engaged. And I looked at my phone, even though, because I had it, but I just didn't have reception. And I had to, like, took me a while to get rid of that, like, nervous tick of checking my fucking phone. I'm like, what am I looking at this thing for? So finally I put it in my tent, and then I got to the point where I was just like, dude, all right, let me just learn about these kids. Like, let me just learn about what's going on with them right now. And I swear to God, from the moment I did that, like, everything got better. Like, I understood them better. Like, yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy you said that, dude. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine when I went down to the Recon Challenge like a month and a half ago or whatever else. And he's one of the guys that helped put through BRC, but he's a really good dude, and we got really close. And he's a SARC also, but he's getting ready to go do some crazier, cool stuff. Let's just put it that way. And we were talking about this whole idea of being like, in the military, we got taught this idea of aggression breeds gains, right? Like, more aggression, the more gains you get, the more the results you see. And it was one of those things where it's like, all right, and I've talked about this before, and it's like one of those things where it's like, no, like that's the wrong mindset to have, right? Because we do miss out on the things like you just talked about, right? Getting to know somebody, right? Not just about like what they're doing and like they're being here for the day, like, but why did they come? What brought them here to open their mind to be like, I'm going to go spend a week in the woods with some dude who I have no idea is, and he's just going to try and teach me about life. Like, what got them there to be in that? Because once we can understand that, we have now created a positive return from them, right? And we end up same thing, and that's kind of where it went back to when I was talking with him when I was an instructor at the schoolhouse at BRC. The time frame, I always asked the students how they were. I never asked, and I didn't know I was doing it, right? I just always asked, hey, how you guys doing? How you feeling? How's this going on? Like, how's life? Like, I would try and find out if they're married, had kids, girlfriend, whatever else, and would always check in on them because that would always affect them more than the training, how their body felt, or anything else than anywhere else, right? So, like, if that's weighing on them hugely, like in a realm, then you're going to go and see everything else start to drop. And that's what we were like, we need to develop this like gentle warrior type mindset where, it's like it's okay to be like, run, let's get after and being intense, but it's also understand to be like, all right, cool, that's there. I need to be over here now because this aggression and all this stuff only comes for certain reasons when I go ahead and utilize it for a positive aspect compared to like trying to put someone down negatively or anything else in the realm. So it's like, all right, cool. How do I blend all this together to be this gentle warrior that I'm supposed to be? Right.
Yeah. And that's a difficult part about being alpha, right? Like there are so many times where you should take that aggression. You should be a monster, and you should fucking channel it to get what you want or get where you want to go. But there are so many times where that does not serve you in a given situation, right? Like some situations just take finesse, and you need to be able to know when to dial back and when not to.
Yeah, dude, and it kind of goes into the same realm of this, dude, when I think about it and I look at all this together as a whole, right, when we're talking about this aggression equals breeds like gains and progress, but then we go and look at this gentle warrior, it kind of comes down to like, how are you utilizing persuading somebody and manipulating somebody? Because those two are separate. Mm-hmm. Right? They are two different definitions. They're two different meanings in someone's life, but a lot of people hear persuading and they hear manipulative and they hear it as a negative return. Mm. Right? Like if I'm trying to persuade you to do something, it's probably because I believe that it's that way, instead of kind of being like, hey, this is what I believe in or how I look at things. Rick, what do you see from that? Right? Instead of me trying to persuade you to do something, we are now having an intelligent and a critical thinking conversation to be able to create what we want to see, instead of me being here and being like, this is the way you got to look at it, Rick, and this is how it is. Or when we come and look at a manipulative type way, right? Manipulation is a negative look in the world. Everyone looks at it and be like, oh, he's being manipulative right now. He's being manipulative right now. It's like, well, is it because you're not being open to what he's saying and you're just thinking negative of that person because you don't believe in what he's trying to do or say, right? Or is because he's utilizing his type A personality and narcissism to go ahead and be like, no, you're going to do this. And like, we do see that. And that's the problem we have, right? Like you can utilize being persuasive, right? And we can utilize being manipulative at the same time and kind of blend them together as a whole to use in a positive outcome, to teach somebody something. And I think we missed the mark on that as a whole when it comes to just being able to manage our highs and lows for life.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean, look, well, like, I love the military because of what it's given me, the opportunities it's given me, but the institution as a whole doesn't give a fuck about making you a better human. You know what I mean? Like, that's not really their goal, and even when they put out some kind of agenda, like, we're going to focus on family first, it's like, right, but like, you don't give a fuck. Like, you're just a number. It's the military. It is what it is, man. Like, you have to accept that it is what it is. I'm part of it. I get it.
Yeah.
But as an instructor, as a Bloods instructor, like, I was talking to a buddy about this just last week, actually. Like, you need to know when to be the hammer, right?
Yeah.
And then when to pull back, like, when to be the hand. Like,
when it's okay to be the nail.
Right. Yeah. Or when it's okay to accept being the nail, right? Because do you want to be right or do you want to get what you want? Those are different things. Sometimes you need to not be right in order to get what you want. But it's like, if you just have this one speed, which I did for a huge portion of my life, like, it was just like, whatever I want, I'm going to get it, head down, bowl through that shit and do it. You reach a point where you can only get so far with that attitude. And I think it's kind of like what got you here won't get you there. Like, I started reaching a really big limit in my life, like in my relationships, in my business, in everything, right? And so you reach a point where in order to be better than you are right now, like, you got to change.
Yeah, dude, that's 100%. That makes a lot of sense, man. And kind of like, I look at myself and like, that's kind of the way I was when I got out of the military, was like, all right, cool, head down, let's just fucking keep moving forward. And that is just what's going to happen because that's all I know. But realistically, it's not all I know. I'm in the one in control of like how my mind, articulates all these things around me and how I can, control my outcome of things. And I can control how fast I move and how slow I move. And a lot of people, again, like you said, don't realize that because we've been so ingrained in being like, go, 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 go. We end up missing something, right? And that's, again, just kind of one of those things where, like you said, you just like being able to be like, do I want to accept being the nail? Do I want to be the hammer? Or do I let go of the hammer for the day and just let it be?
Yeah. Right. And, I don't know how many times I got to learn this friggin' lesson, but, like, just be with people when you're with people, right? Like, because a lot of times, like, that's what I found this past week. It's like, these kids that I was mentoring at first, so it was a really interesting situation. I won't get into it, but, like, they didn't really want to be at this camp at first. And so that was really interesting because, I have these 6 kids, and I'm talking to them, like, how'd you get here, whatever. And like, yeah, my mom made me come, or my school made me come, my coach made me come, whatever. And so it's kind of like at the beginning, I'm like, look, fellas, like, it sucks you didn't want to be here, but you're here now, and, like, check it out. I don't fucking lose. So, like, our group's going to win everything. Like, you just accept it, do the best you can. Like, I was the hammer at first. I'm like, this is how we're doing it. This is how we're doing business here. And then once I hit that, like, 30-hour period where I stopped looking at my phone and I stopped thinking that I know everything all the time about every situation and every person, and I was like, let me just go see what's the deal with these kids, man. And so I literally, like, went over and sat with them at lunch instead of sitting with the other instructors and started talking to them. And, dude, we started talking about football and we started talking about their life and all these things. We started connecting. And I swear from that point forward, like, everything got better. And to the point where, like, on day 6, these kids didn't even want to leave. Like, kids that didn't want to be there. It was incredible to see the transformation. But I really accredit most of that with me just laying down my sword and being like, look, I don't have all the answers, man. Like, I have some answers. If I have them for you, I'll give them to you. And if not, let's just talk about life, man. Sometimes people just need to talk.
Well, that's funny you said that, dude, because a lot of people won't do that. And, like, you are able to understand, like, hey, like, I'm human.
Yeah. And
a lot of people, due to social media and due to just where the world's nowadays, like, everyone sees someone in this high-powered position and they're like, oh, my God. Or, for instance, like, you were in charge of these 6 guys on your team and the first thing you came out and did was drop the hammer, right? Instead of, like, creating that buy-in, you decided to be like, no, like, they need to understand what's about to happen and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, that was probably a good step, right? Because you're like, hey, look, I'm not going to be putting up with shit today or in the next 6 weeks. But once they were able to see, like, hey, you're a human also and you are vulnerable just as much as they are and you've lived life just like they have. You watch football, you watch soccer, you do all these crazy things just like they do. You have a mindset just like them. You're just as normal. And then that's when you actually realize, like, oh, cool. The same thing with Tom Brady. Like, Tom Brady, yes, he makes multi-millionaire dollars and wins Super Bowls. Right? Mm-hmm. But he also ties his shoes the exact same way you do. He probably wipes himself the same exact way as you do. He probably showers exactly the same way as most of, like, he does all those things. He eats meals. He does all these things. There's nothing famous that he does just because he throws footballs for a living to win championships. That doesn't define who he is at the end of the day. And that's where I think you made the mark of being like, you know what? Yeah, I might do all these things, but like these kids are what matter most because I need to find out who they are so that they're able to open up. And you built a cohesion of team building for them. And I'm pretty sure your guys kicked ass the rest of the weekend or the rest of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, you know, because you're right. Like I was put in that situation because I give a lot of speeches on, you know, running 200 miles, and I give speeches on like different success, being special operations. So that's why I got put in that position. Like, they don't give a fuck about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, people don't give a shit, dude. They want to be humans, and they want to talk to you like you're a human. And it took me a minute to get over myself and realize, like, dude, they don't give a fuck what I did. Like, they don't care that I can run for a long time. Are you kidding me? Like, this kid got jumped 2 weeks ago. Like, he does not give a shit that I can run really fast or really long. Like, that's not his thing. And yeah, I agree, man. No matter where you're at, like, even when you get to that higher level of success, you got to remember, like, dude, these are other humans, and what do all humans want more than anything? Connection.
And that's it, right? Like we all strive for connection some way, shape, or form. And again, like I said, we're missing the mark on it. And I think being able to do what you did and be able to put that stuff out there and what we're doing right now, and we're creating dialogue and connection for people to reach out and being like, man, that was like legit. Like you guys get it right now. Like you get it right now. Like you understand it. And that's the mark, right? Like,
right. And you know what's interesting is you can look at case studies, man, because there are like the Steve Jobs of the world, the people that were hammers their whole life, and they did really, really great things in life. But man, I don't know if everyone looks back at your legacy and they're like, that guy was a fucking asshole. I don't know if that's a win, dude. Like, that doesn't feel like a win. I don't care if you died in your mansion or not. That doesn't, to me, like, that just doesn't feel like a win.
Yeah, like I don't want to like we've talked about legacy plenty of times, right? We've said like these things and we won't go over it again, but exactly, like I don't want to be that guy that's known as the asshole. Like,
yeah, right.
Like,
no matter how
raised...
good you are at throwing a football or building a computer program or running for a really long time, like at the end of the day, dude, if you're not a good human to other humans, like, yeah, you're kind of fucked up.
Who gives a shit though, like what you do, right? Like it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, you know, the other thing I'll say, too, is I was talking to a buddy who actually volunteers in hospice, which is really interesting. Something I might actually consider doing, even though it sounds really fucking weird. You're talking to people who've gone through an entire lifetime, and they're kind of at the end of it. And, like, the insights I think that you would get out of that situation seem pretty wild. And he was like, dude, nobody ever, like, every single person I talk to, not one person remembers. They don't regret one single chance that they took or one single connection that they made. Those are the two things people never regret in their life. You know what I mean? And so it's like, but if you were, you know, kind of an asshole to people and you, I don't know, I just think if you look back, like you gotta, if you play the human game while you're here, I think that you're going to be more satisfied with it. And that's what I noticed. Like at the end of this week, when I saw these kids that like legitimately were completely turned around at day 6 and day 1, kids that were like, I can't wait to come back next year. I'm like giving them my email. Like it was really awesome. But like, man, you'll never regret that, right? Like it doesn't matter that I wasn't on my social media as much that week or answering emails as much that week or my business kind of slipped in that week. Like you'll never regret like that human interaction that you have. And so you just got to be present with people when you're with them, I think.
Yeah, and that's what I told the Batista today too. And like, you know, I was talking to her. I was like, look, I could have gave you a short answer and like, hey, how are you doing? I could have gave you a short answer, but I literally paused what I was doing, closed my computer and sat here and talked to you because again, like this is what you're going to remember a week from now.
Right, and when you do that with her, like you have no idea what that might have meant to her. Like, just like I have no idea what that might have meant to those kids or the ripple effect that that's going to have when they go into their next situation or she goes into her next situation. It's just hard to tell not knowing, you know what I mean?
And it's funny, dude, is because, like, you know, at the end of the day, when I was in that time and moment, I wasn't thinking about if she was going to remember who I was a week from now. Right. That's not what I was thinking about. I was literally just sharing an insight that I've gone through, that I've experienced, and that it's this revolving wheel we talked about before too, and this full circle that it always comes. You're always going to go back to it, right? The only thing is you're just a little bit more prepared than you were previously when you went through it again, and that's all it is. And that's what we were talking about, right? So it's being able to like develop these ways to be able to handle again the unexpected aspects of life in everything we do, just in a smarter approach compared to a emotional reaction instead of kind of slowing down, thinking, then coming with action instead of kind of reacting with just pure emotion. Because when we react with pure emotion, it doesn't end very well.
Ever.
Right. Ever, you know? So, yeah, dude, it's just, it hits home for me, especially when we talk a lot about this, because I've been able to experience both ends of the spectrum, and I'm pretty sure, and you have too, like we've talked about plenty of times. So, you know, it's crazy that we got into like this, and is pretty much managing the highs and lows of life. Like,
yeah, right. And you know, here's another thing that's pretty interesting when we talk about like the highs and lows of life. Like, this is something I've been thinking about lately. It's like we treat passion in our lives like it's very like sometimes
black and white.
Sometimes it's not. Like it's not something that you are like encouraged to pursue all the time. If you even think about a relationship, right? The beginning stages of a relationship when you want to fucking tear that person's clothes off all the time and it's super passionate and people are like, oh, that just doesn't last. It can't last. But it's like, it's interesting to me that we don't try to manage those highs more. Like we don't try to cultivate more passion in our life. We don't, you know, and like some people do, and it seems like maybe they're a little bit happier, but it's like for whatever reason we accept that it comes and goes and we don't try to manage it more. We don't try to keep it and cultivate it. And it's like, but humans are innately meant to be passionate, dude. I think, like, you know, if you think about it, like we're the only animal that creates shit. And like when you create something, you get super passionate about it.
Oh, yeah.
We're the only animal that can look at something and make it nothing, right? We can look at a blank canvas and we can make it something that somebody else looks at and literally questions their entire life. But that, like, other animals don't have the ability to do that. And when you do that, right, like, you feel it. The person that made that thing feels it. The person that's looking at it feels it. And for whatever reason, it's like we don't really strive for passion all the time. But I kind of think we should. Like, I've started to think, like, you just should, man. You should cultivate those things in your life, the things you're passionate about. You should just keep doing them, like, whether they make other people happy or not. Like, if they're, like, passion is going to make you happy. And I think part of the reason we don't is because it comes innate with a big downside, right? Like, if you create something that you're super passionate about and the world doesn't get it, like, that fucking hurts. Like, you know what I mean? And so I think maybe that's part of it.
And that's a great topic to bring up, right? Of being understanding, like, okay, passion, like this is my passion for something, and I'm going to go ahead and put it out to the world to see. And what's funny is that we're right away, let's put it out, and we automatically become critics of our own work. First off, right? We're the biggest critics of our own work. We know this, but we end up letting one or two people from when we just put it out dictate our direction with our passion. Right? Like that first, like, let's say that first person sees it and they're like, oh, this is not that good. And then the next person comes out, oh, that's not that good. And all of a sudden you're like, well, fuck, no one's taking hold to it. Let me just go ahead and like not do this after all. When realistically it's only reached, you know, your passion of putting yourself out there and what you want to do is only reach maybe 10 people. And out of those 10 people, only 50% like it, 50% don't. So you automatically go with the 50% of people that don't like it. So I'm going to go ahead and take it and change it instead of leaving it up. And seeing and putting your passion out there for a while and seeing what really grows of it. Because, again, your passion is not going to go ahead and match every single human being out there. Right? When we talk about that culture aspect and we look at like that, when we look to thrive in the culture and we look at just a tribe in general, everyone has their own tribe and only brings a certain people to their tribe because of who they are or personality. So, again, your passion is not going to be for everybody. Right? LionHeart Radio is not for everybody. The sideshow is not for everybody. Right? I'm pretty sure people listening are like, who are these dudes just talking about life and like, what do they know about it? Right? I'm pretty sure people say that. Does it bother me? No. Like, it doesn't bother me at all. I can give two shits less. But what does make me happy and what makes me passionate and what keeps the fire growing is being able to educate and help people who are in the same realm as me, who are sometimes lost, and, you know, just those things, right? Like, that's where I think a lot of people miss the mark in understanding their passion when they go and chase it, right? And we'll use, for example, I have an athlete who is not sure if she wants to re-enlist or if she wants to go ahead and just become in the civilian world, right? Because she's in the military and all she's been taught is what? Go, 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 put the blinders on, your head's down, looking at your feet, left, right, and hasn't had the time to pick her head up and look around her. And now she's getting ready to re-enlist here in a couple of days, and she's still on the fence of what do I do? When it's like, have you really sat stopped and found like what defines you and what is your purpose and what is your passion. Not fitness, not the military, no, but who are you and what's going to help define you down the road? And are you going to be truly happy in that time and space by re-enlisting, or are we going that route? And you got to put yourself in both those positions to really be able to understand where we're going.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I think when we get passionate about something, we tend to – I'm trying to unpack all those things that you said. But when we get passionate about something, we tend to like we want it validated because we're so passionate about it. So we want someone else to validate it. But like something I've started to realize when it comes to creating shit, and we'll start with that, like once you create something, like this thing has been put in your heart to create it, right? Whatever that is. Once you create it, you created it because you felt that it belonged in the world. You had something to say. Now, what you can't do is expect somebody else to like it. You just set it free. That's your job. Your job, it was put in your heart. You decided to create it, so your job was to put it into the world. If you start expecting people to, if you start expecting people to applaud it, then it turns it into a relationship of like quid pro quo, right? Like I thought about this on Tuesday when I was speaking I was giving this talk, something I was super passionate about, and at first I wasn't really capturing people, and I had to like pull myself back and be like, "Whoa, dude! Like this was you have something to say. You just say it. You do it to the best of your ability as good as you can. It's not the audience doesn't owe you something. They don't owe you an applause. Now, if it lands, that's great, right? But you have to get to the mind where you sort of, you do these things you're passionate about because it's the right thing to do, because it fires you up, because it makes you happy. And then hopefully the world accepts it, and if it does, like that feels great. But I don't think you can let your happiness be contingent on that.
Yeah. And exactly, right? Like I can't have my happiness be dictated by someone else's validation, because if I have that happen, then I'm not going anywhere, right? Like we're not going anywhere. Like for instance, like if we put that first show out like we did for the side show, and we listened, like I'm pretty sure people like we talked about, right? Like, but we were like, no, like we don't need validation for the show. Is it nice to get it, like you've said? Hell yeah. Is it cool to be like people call us the Power Couple podcast? So like that's funny, right? Like, but that's not what we were trying to do. Like. We were just trying to come out and just kind of let everyone know, like, hey, it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to know that this is going on. And if you guys are cool listening to us talk, then thank you. Right? Yeah. So that's where at the end of the day where it's like you said, dude, is like being passionate doesn't need to be validated by anyone else but yourself. And if you believe in it and if you want to go ahead and put 110% behind it, because again, if I'm passionate about something, I'm not going to give 110% about it, then why am I going to do it?
Yeah, right, exactly. And I mean, people have all kinds of reasons for doing it, right? Like they don't want to look stupid to other people. They want to fit in with society. They don't want to be judged. They want to, and I think in every single one of us, there's like two people, right? There's the person that wants badly to go for everything that they dream of, right? They want to go after their motivation. They want to go after their passion. And then we have another person inside of us that's like a scared little kid. And it's ruled by fear, and it doesn't want to be judged or ridiculed.
It's that dark passenger, bro.
Yeah, right? But I really feel that way sometimes. It's like, why? Yeah. And don't let that person rule your life. Like, that happens to me all the time. I'm like, why the fuck am I letting the smallest part of me run shit around here? Like, I got things to do. I got plans. I can't be dealing with this, like, small, scared, insecure little kid that doesn't want to look stupid in front of other people. Like, I got something to say, and I got to put it out there. And I think sometimes you just have to get to that point. And when you do, you start like really making decisions in your life. When that bigger part of you is making the decisions, you start making them based off your passion, right? And you start to cultivate it more in your life. You don't accept it as something that comes and goes, and you're like, well, I'm not passionate about my job, but it's got good benefits, and it's gonna pay the bills, and it's pretty secure. And it's like, dude, secure? That's like plaque for the fucking soul, man. Like you are dying slowly, and that's something that's taken me a really long time to get to. It's like, dude, remember why you started? Cultivate that passion and keep fucking chasing it. Or maybe that's just the point I'm at now. I don't know.
Well, and that's kind of goes to the realm because, like, and I guess you can say security is complacency, right? We can think that. Yeah. Right. We can think complacency is security. Security is complacency. However you want to look at it. But at the end of the day, there's a lot of people out in the United States or in the world that are okay with, let me wake up at 8 a.m. and let me go work till 5 p.m. and let me go pick up my kid and go take him to to a football, soccer practice or whatever, or ballet or dance, and then let me come home, cook dinner for them, put them to bed, and let's just repeat. People are okay with that, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Because they're fulfilling their passion of being the best father or mother possible, right? And if they don't have no other external motivation and motivators to help continue fueling that, but their external motivators are, i.e. working from 8 to 5 and having this 6-figure job and full benefits for them and their family and giving everything else like that, does that stem from them not having passion, or does it stem from the experiences they've created in their life to being like, hey, this is all I know?
Well, right, but if you're, that kind of speaks to if you're passionate about your family and providing for them and protecting them and having a great loving relationship with them, and then the job, we're always making decisions based on the things we really want, and so, or hopefully we are, and so if you make a decision for that good job with good benefits because the thing that you're it's a means to an end, because the thing you're passionate about is your family, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I do think there's a lot of people that are on fucking autopilot around here.
Yes.
That aren't passionate about any damn thing, you know what I mean? Except for the occasional good book or the beginning of a new relationship, which it's okay, it's going to fade. It's like...
Or the new movie that just came out?
Yeah, or the new movie. Or I don't know shit about new movies. So.
Dude, I'm a big-time scary movie buff. I love scary movies.
Okay.
So the new Halloween movie's coming out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. How many years is it since? I think it was like 20 years since the first actually legit making of Halloween is coming out this year. 20 years since the first original one. They're coming out with the newest one, and I can't wait.
You're a fucking nerd. That means nothing to me. But yeah, dude, but really, like it's real life, man. Like passion just drifts in and out of our life, and I just think we got to do more we got to manage those highs better, man. We're not doing a good job of that, I don't think.
So like we've talked about like managing the highs and lows, but I don't feel like we really kind of put out, I guess it's really hard to kind of put out ways of managing them because we manage them in all different ways that we know possible for ourselves and what works for us. What are some of the things that you do when you do hit a low and you're trying to manage those lows and highs?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. Like the first thing is sometimes I'm getting to the point where like, okay, I got to accept this low. I try to look around for what it can teach you. The other thing, that I've mentioned on this show before a lot, but it's like you got to ask yourself, why is this happening for me and not to me? And if you look around for a good enough reason, it's been my experience that you can find a reason it's happening for you, and then you can kind of build off that momentum. You know what I mean? I think gratitude is something that you should practice in your life daily. Like if you have gratitude, it's like if there's a bank with 50 people in the bank and somebody runs in to rob it and shoots one shot and it hits you in the arm, it's like the normal reaction is like, well, what the fuck? There were 100 arms in this bank, 50 people, and it happened to be me that hit. But if you can cultivate that attitude of gratitude, I hate that I just said that. If you can cultivate that gratitude, though, then you become the person that's like, holy shit, 6 inches to the left and I'm dead.
Yeah. Thank
God I'm still here, right? And then I think that's another way to help yourself get out of it is like gratitude. And then finally, like personal responsibility sometimes, like depending on what the low is, right? That's why this is in black and white to me. But like I thought about that in relationships. It's a lot of times it starts off super passionate, and then by the end, sex is a chore, and it's like this thing that you're just going through the motions of. When I'm in that situation, I'm realizing like you got to take more responsibility. Like you need to cultivate that passion yourself. Like it's not them, it's not this thing, it's me. Like I need to make it better. I need to be more open with my communication. I need to talk about what I want. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's no black and white way to get through a low or cultivate the passion, but I do know that you should probably be looking for more ways to bring it into your life.
Yeah, definitely, dude. And that kind of feeds off this, dude. It's like every action, there is a reaction, right? And you're in control of those actions. And there are some times where you're not in control of the actions and it produces a reaction where you now have control of it, right? Like we can put it in a square and cut that square into 4 boxes and then kind of put like your actions develop this reaction. All right, cool. Like your actions develop no reaction. Okay, cool. This action outside of your control developed this reaction that you can control. And the last box is pretty much you didn't do anything for that to action to happen. You have no control over that reaction at all. And you just have to let it happen and kind of I've learned this. I learned this through a parenting counseling type book that I read, trying to work through like, mending stuff with my younger daughter's mom and trying to make it the right way, try and be the best father possible and really trying to build communication. And I took that whole square model I just used right now and turned it into what I just developed for myself was, all right, cool. This action that just happened, can I have control of the reaction? Did I cause this? Because if it did, then I need to take personal responsibility for it. If I didn't cause this action, but I have control of the reaction, I still can take responsibility for it because I have control over it. Again, the universe is not out to get me. The universe is out to help me. How am I able to learn from this in this time and moment is another big thing I talk about, right? So we talk about controlling actions and reactions, not controlling them or having just responsibility for it, and then understanding like the universe works in its way and I got to enjoy it and be present for what's happening is kind of one of the big things that I do there. And then also, like you talked about, gratitude. Dude, I don't know. When I finally started understanding having gratitude and have empathy towards someone and myself, it made me realize like being able to handle those lows that I'm experiencing in life just made them that much easier to handle. Right. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm in a low. It's okay to feel this way. I'm a human being. Like, I'm not Superman. Like that's fake. That's not real. Right. Like I'm a human being. God gave me emotions and gave me feelings and gave me all these crazy things. And we're such a complex but simple human being, like system that's just what it is. And we just have to be okay with it. Now, don't do this. And this is one thing I used to do a lot. And it's from experiences. When I'm in the low, I take it out on everyone else. It's their fault. It's their fault. It's their fault. And being able to be like, okay, cool. Like, they have no idea what's going on. I have no idea what they're doing. And being able to walk a day in their shoes, I guarantee you I now can understand like where they're coming from. And if you can put yourself in that position during a low and being like, look, take yourself out of the shoes and looking at you from the outside view and being like, man, realistically, you're not really doing that bad. Right. You got a roof over your head, you got shoes on your feet, you're able to put food in your mouth. And some people don't have that, right? But like, the people that don't have some of those smaller things, simple things in life are also some of the happiest people because they're okay with where they're at in that spot, time and moment. And it's actually a high for them, not a low. Right. So if we can go ahead and put ourselves in being like it always can be worse, I think we're doing a good job, right? And if we can stop and being like, look, it can be worse. I take action for what I do. I take responsibility for the actions that cause the reaction, or I'm in control of this and know that the universe is working for me, then maybe I am in a good place where I'm at right now. And then maybe it can gradually come out of this low and then get back into this high that kind of just keeps me at a medium where I'm able to chase my passion and know what defines me and knows like, where I'm at and able to give myself to that loved one and give myself, in other areas of life while managing all of this at the same time and being able to compartmentalize it all as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And that idea that like you have gratitude for, so you're talking about like, getting mad at people like this is your fault, this is along the journey. And the reality is like when you go after something that you want, like you kind of have to accept the lumps and the bruises along the way and the obstacles. It's fucking part of it, man. Like, be grateful that dream was like put in you, that you have this dream for something bigger. Like, that was the part of the universe. Like, you got it. You got the dream. It's your time to execute. And like when shit doesn't go right, it's probably because you're not doing something right, and that this universe, the situation, whatever you believe, is trying to teach you something so that you can do it right. But every time you go out on a limb and that bitch breaks, the answer isn't to stop going out on a limb. Like, you just need to understand that that's going to happen. You just need to keep going out on more limbs. Eventually, you're going to find one strong enough to build a house on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And that's what it is, right? We're developing a foundation that we can stand on top of and withstand any kind of natural disaster that's going to come our way that the universe wants to throw at us.
Right, for sure. And so the last question I want to ask you, whenever I do an ultra, I usually come up with like some pretty good insights, like just from thinking. In this last 50K you were in a couple days ago, did you come up with anything that was like new or that you thought about in a different way?
That's actually a really good question because I actually did. It was being able to understand my mindset throughout the race and being able to like see that, I think I've talked a lot about it today, man. Realistically, is like it's kind of trying to think about it, is like the whole understanding of like where I'm at in this time and moment, and that I got to take responsibility for it. And I get a lot of insights on those things, man. And just this race was one of those where it was like, all right, cool. A lot of the insights that I have developed previously, I can now utilize them in this race. And they kind of help me grow mentally and build a confidence booster in knowing that I can handle a little bit more in life than I thought I could, because I was able to push my fitness a little bit more and move with a purpose, and actually understand, like, you know, when I'm climbing the mountain, chasing my buddies up this mountain, and, you know, I'm sitting there like, why am I moving so fast for? Like, why? Like, and then when I slowed down, when I physically slowed down, but when I slowed my mind down from racing, because I was like, man, this hurts or whatever else, I was able to experience this, like, oh no, like, this is what I'm meant to be doing right now. Right. And it kind of translated to the everyday life. Like, what I'm doing right now in this time and space is what I'm supposed to be doing. And that is kind of the insight that I got from it all, because I've never really understood the whole, like, hey, have patience in a race. Right. And like, I understand it in life a little bit, but I never really understood it too much in a race. And I had patience in this race and was able to manage the way I needed to or whatever else. And the inside of it came out to being just like, all right, cool. Like, being able to manage this and understand the idea of being where I'm at today in this time and moment is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. And just enjoy it is kind of the insight that I got from that.
I think that's, so hard to do and so important. Like, to genuinely try to accept that you're in this exact position for a reason, or that you're exactly where you should be at this exact moment in time. Like, just genuinely accepting that, it's really hard, but once you do, man, things get better.
And another thing too that I did when I was out there was, when I realized like where I was at in that time and moment, I accepted it. I started looking back, and you have enough time to do this. Just like you have enough time to do this.
You're out there for a while.
I started thinking back to like what led me to it, actually. Like I started looking back at like, okay, cool. What actions did I do when I was younger to lead me where I'm at today? What actions did I did to lead me where I'm at today? Are these all the reactions? Are these all just cumulative actions that just came to one to put me in this time and place? One, to enjoy and have gratitude to suffer the way I am, right? To be able to experience this new insight of being like, man, all right, let's just stay here, be welcome where you're at, and just be open with it and just continue moving forward with it. And that's one thing I think, if you can kind of like piece it back together and look at it. And the same thing, for instance, like we're drinking this LaCroix drinks. And by the way, we're both drinking one. We had no idea that I have it. I saw him pick his up and I had just pulled mine out of the refrigerator. But if you think about it, right, and we look at something, for instance, and we look at, where was this made from, right? Where did this aluminum come from? Where did the liquids of this come from? And even smaller than that, like, how were they developed? Right? And like being able to drop it down to the smallest thing, and then all of a sudden build it back up to being like, this is why I'm here and this is okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. And I don't want to open a different rabbit hole, but also thinking like, what happens next, right? Like, what is the ramification of you drinking this? Where does it end up? Like, are you contributing to the world that you want to be in? And I know that's a completely different topic, but it's also something I've been thinking about a lot lately, because like we tend to just do things based on, some sort of misguided impulse without thinking about like whether we're actually contributing to the world we want to be in or not.
And that's actually a really good question, and a topic probably we could save for another show.
Yeah,
but
let's do that.
Yeah, definitely. I do think about that all the time, and I'll tell you what, like, just to leave it off in this one sentence, is that when I do think about what's next, it scares the shit out of me.
It should. If your dreams are big enough, they will.
It does. It scares the living shit out of me, because, you never know what's going to happen in an hour or 2 hours. Right. Like, so again, like, do I just stay focused and present in this time and moment and in this space and just let whatever comes our way be that way? Again, like I said, that's a topic we can talk about another day for sure. But yeah, it's just scary as shit for sure.
Yeah, let's end it there. I think if people are thinking about the things that they're passionate about and they don't kind of scare them, think a little bit bigger.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's huge.
Perfect.
Definitely.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, dude.
Thanks for listening to LionHeart Radio. I hope that the information from today's show will make you fitter, happier, and healthier. For the show notes of this episode and every episode, head to www.lionheartrad.io. Yep, just like LionHeart Radio. And please, if you have the time, head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. It really helps us to know that we're on the right track and delivering you reliable information and value. As always, feedback is welcomed. If you have any comments on the show or would like to suggest a guest, send me an email at rick@luavive.com. That's LUAVIVE.com. Thanks for your support, and we will see you next time.
Bitch, I feel good. Don't I look stupendous? My shine is so endless, and shit you can do to end this. Even when I'm dead, niggas still gon' bump that chip shit. Coke, white, Escalade on cinches for you dipshit. So you won't forget this. Midwest nigga be the coldest. Cleveland